We like to think of software as neutral, a tool, a dashboard, a system that helps people make better decisions. But some software does more than organize information. It decides what matters. It shows who is risky, who should be prioritized, where resources should go, what pattern is suspicious, which person, company, patient, or threat deserves attention. And once software starts shaping decisions at that level, it stops being purely technical. It becomes political. Because when data becomes power, politics enters the room. This is why companies like Palantir are so difficult to understand. On the surface, Palantir is a software company. It helps organizations integrate messy data, build workflows, and use AI to make decisions faster. That sounds simple. But the deeper question is not just what the software does. The deeper question is, where does the software sit inside the system? If it sits inside advertising, it helps companies sell. If it sits inside finance, it helps allocate capital. If it sits inside healthcare, it may influence patient care. If it sits inside national security, it may shape surveillance, defense, and military decisions. If it sits inside government, it touches public trust. That is why Palantir is not just an AI application stock. It is a company sitting at the intersection of data, institutions, and power. In markets, people often say data is the new oil. But that metaphor is incomplete. Oil powers machines. Data powers judgment. Data is not just a raw material, it is memory. It is behavior. It is identity. It is vulnerability. A single piece of data may not mean much. But when enough data is connected, it becomes a portrait. A portrait of a person, a company, a population, a supply chain, a battlefield, a hospital system, a government. And once that portrait becomes actionable, it becomes power. Not symbolic power, operational power. The power to see earlier, act faster, rank priorities, allocate resources, detect patterns, and sometimes, to control. This is the bull case for Palantir. Most large organizations are not clean. Their data is fragmented. Their workflows are old. Their systems do not talk to each other. Their decisions are slow. AI sounds powerful in a demo. But inside a real institution, AI needs context. It needs access to the right data. It needs permissions. It needs security. It needs audit trails. It needs to understand what a customer, a patient, a supply chain, or a military unit actually means inside that organization. This is where Palantir's story becomes interesting. It is not just trying to sell a chatbot. It is trying to become the operating layer between messy institutional data and real-world decisions. If AI becomes embedded into enterprise and government workflows, then the companies that control those workflows may become very valuable. Because the future of AI is not just answering questions. It is helping institutions act. But this is also the risk. The more powerful this kind of software becomes, the more political it becomes. Because people will ask, who owns the data? Who controls access? Can the system be audited? Can citizens understand how decisions are made? What happens when the system is wrong? What happens when a private company becomes deeply embedded in public infrastructure? And this is why Palantir will always carry a different kind of risk than ordinary software companies. It is not just selling productivity. It is selling decision infrastructure. And decision infrastructure creates trust questions. In healthcare, the question is privacy. In government, the question is accountability. In defense, the question is ethics. In enterprise, the question is dependency. This does not mean the company is bad. It means the company is important. And important companies attract political attention. For investors, this creates a very unusual setup. Palantir's upside comes from the fact that it may become deeply embedded in high-value systems. But its risk comes from the same place. If a company sells simple software, customers can replace it. But if a company becomes part of how an institution sees itself, understands its data, and makes decisions, it becomes harder to remove. That creates pricing power. But it also creates public scrutiny. The more Palantir succeeds, the more visible it becomes. And the more visible it becomes, the more politicians, regulators, journalists, activists, and citizens will ask questions. This is why valuation matters. A company can be strategically important, and still become too expensive. A company can have a powerful mission and still face contract risk. A company can be early to a massive market and still experience painful drawdowns. With Palantir, the question is not simply, is this an AI company? The better question is, how much of the future decision-making layer can it capture? And how much political resistance will come with that capture? This is also a bigger lesson about the AI era. Nvidia may build the token factories. Microsoft may distribute AI through the enterprise. OpenAI and Anthropic may build frontier models. But companies like Palantir are trying to answer a different question. Where does intelligence enter the institution? Does it sit on top of the organization as a tool? Or does it move deeper? Into the workflows, the data structures, the permissions, the decisions. That is where AI becomes powerful. But that is also where AI becomes political. Because intelligence is not neutral when it is embedded inside power. It reflects incentives. It reflects institutions. It reflects who gets visibility and who gets watched. Who gets optimized and who gets ignored. Who gets protected and who gets controlled. So when I look at Palantir, I do not see a normal software company. I see a company trying to build the nervous system for institutions. That is why the opportunity is so large. And that is why the controversy will not disappear. Because the future of AI will not only be decided by who has the best model, or the fastest chip, or the largest data center. It will also be decided by who is trusted to place intelligence inside systems that affect real lives. When data becomes power, politics enters the room. And in the age of AI, that may become one of the most important investment questions of all.